Hey, welcome into Death by Dynasty, another episode, and we got some swag now. You know what's good? I got the Death by Dynasty
Let's
merchandise.
go.
I know you
Let's
can't
go.
see it
Coming
very well,
soon.
but yeah, is the link? Are we live yet or not yet? Maybe next week when the episode comes out.
Coming very, very soon. Very
When-
soon. Maybe when the episode comes out, but very soon. That's how soon.
So soon that the merchandise is live. The link is in the description right now. And really, this is just merchandise for anyone who's a Dynasty fantasy football fan. If you like the hobby, if you are a GM of a fantasy football team, maybe this is a good league prize. Maybe you just want to rep, the hobby. Or maybe it's a good thing to wear to draft night. A little extra luck for you as you're drafting your startups and your rookie drafts. So merchandise out now, link in description. Look out for on all our social medias at Death by Dynasty, at DBD Fantasy Pod on Twitter. Definitely be looking out for some merchandise. Really like Death by Dynasty merchandise, but really like merchandise just if you're a Dynasty fantasy player that you want to just rep Dynasty football in general. So yeah, big things, and go give us a follow, interact with us on social medias, and today we're roasting some players. We're going to be roasting some players today.
Let's get it. It's going to be fun. I'm ready to go.
We're both naming our top 5 overrated Dynasty fantasy football players. And I guess go ahead, start it off.
All right.
Are we starting off with number 5 or 5th?
Yeah, let's go. Okay. 5. For my number 5, I'm going to go with the running back. I tried to pick someone from multiple positions. I have 3 positions covered here, but starting it off is A.J. Dillon, currently ranked at running back 29 in Dynasty. I haven't been impressed. I will be surprised. I was shocked to see he's only been in the league for 3 years. But he's a goal line back. He's like 250 pounds, can't score touchdowns on the goal line, has yet to prove to be able to do that. And that should be what his role is. He hasn't proven that he's better than Aaron Jones, in my opinion. And in that case, if you're not the premier guy and you're splitting carries, you got to be able to score touchdowns to be relevant in fantasy, to be taken as running back 29. So in the running back 2, running back 3 range there. And I just can't see it. And he hasn't, he's topped to over 1,000 yards one time. So just at his current value, I'm fading him all the way.
Kind of landed on my team this offseason by luck. So I'm not like huge on him, but I do think that he has big opportunity coming. Like, I think his value, he is 25 years old, so it's going to reach a peak relatively quickly, but I do think his value is still rising. And I think that's somewhat fair, personally, because yeah, you're right about the goal line, but he still has scored more rushing touchdowns than Aaron Jones in the last 2 years, I believe. And he also has great catchability, like great as a receiving back. And I think that that's really underrated for him. And it's a contract year for him. I think all things kind of point towards possibly him being a starter in 2024. And if that is true, automatically his value will rise a little bit. So that's the only thing that I appreciate about him. And I think just as his receiving ability as well.
One thing I'll say about waiting for opportunities in the future is for running back specifically is I feel like that's such a risky move nowadays because teams go through running backs like it's Pop-Tarts. Like it's like, look at Tyler Algier last year, literally had over.
If you really like Pop-Tarts.
like Tyler Algier had 1,000 yards. He was arguably one of the best rookies last year. And now he's basically a backup running back who's going to be irrelevant fantasy wise. So it's just, I hate waiting because teams so quickly can just flip the script or pick up a free agent. All right. Who's your number 5?
Yeah, no, that's fair. My number 5 is hot take possibly coming in higher. It's Cooper Kupp. Okay. Here's the thing about Cooper Kupp. This has nothing to do about what he's done in his career in the past. I'm talking dynasty football. I'm looking ahead right now. I certainly think that him going into his year, he's 30 years old this year. I think just for any wide receiver, you got to be cautious about Are they going to start to drop off in his 30th year? Had season-ending surgery last year. Not to mention that his quarterback is coming off of a spinal cord contusion injury that ended his season last year, and Matthew Stafford is 35 years old, which in today's day and age isn't crazy for a quarterback, but he is still one of the older quarterbacks in the NFL. And like even contemplated retirement, or at least there was rumors that he was contemplating retirement last season. So just with that and just coming off an injury, 30 years old, I think like he's easily still the best wide receiver on the team. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad year. I just think that he's overrated in that he's not going to be putting up his 2021 numbers again. And he did kind of look like he could be getting that like early before his injury last season. But like, can he? I mean, I just think that it's just not likely that he gets 190 targets again this season. That's pretty much what I'm basing it off of. I think they're going to have to utilize the run game a little bit more this season, and that the offense just in general isn't going to look as good as it has like 2 years ago.
So this is what I'll say is I was looking on Fantasy Pros, and I think ADP of wide receiver 4 might be redraft. I don't know what sleeper is because they had him as wide receiver 15 on Dynasty on Fantasy Pros. And when I was looking there, I thought that was a very appropriate rank for where he's at. I will say at 4, definitely that's very overrated. But at wide receiver 15, I just have a hard time naming 15 other receivers that I would rather have over him. He only played 9 games last year and still almost had 1,000 yards. And yeah, I guess the big question mark is Stafford. I don't remember if he was contemplating retirement or not, but he definitely had one of his worst seasons, which I feel like I don't know. I feel like I haven't heard a lot of talk about Cooper Kupp, so I was leaning towards the side of him almost being underrated, but you bring up a lot of good points. So I'm gonna stick. I think he's appropriately ranked, but you make a really good argument.
Yeah, I think it's just when you talk about he's 30 years old in Dynasty, if you're contending, sure, but he's going to start his value at 30 years old. It's going to start dropping from here. It just is. It can't go up. It can't go up. So, who would be your number 4th overrated player?
Go with another running back here, around the same range as AJ Dillon, and that's Brian Robinson. He's limited in the passing game, and that's been something that I think was shocking to a lot of people, which hurts value as a running back. You need every touch you can get, and if you're not getting the catches, then it's really hard to get into that RB2, RB1 range. He hasn't shown a lot of explosiveness, which again, you need those explosive plays in fantasy. A lot of times, half your players' points comes off one rush. He 3.9 yards per attempt. And an interesting thing that I saw too is that Washington has one of the most challenging schedules, according to projected wins. So they're probably going to be throwing a lot, which means that if he's not as involved in the passing game, then I just can't see him being a player that I'm taking as a running back 3 or RB2 where he's currently going. And Gibson too. I feel like people are forgetting about him.
I was gonna say that, to be honest with you.
Like if Gibson's gonna get touches, he's been hurt with he's had injuries throughout his career, but he's been impressive when he does play. So I can't see him not being involved at all.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have heard this before, but they are talking about we want to get Gibson more touches. But even looking at Brian Robinson just in isolation, like you said, doesn't have the catchability, receiving ability out of the backfield. Also under 4 yards per carry, like nothing that special. And truthfully, I kind of think that everybody on that offense is overrated. I think that Sam Howell is nothing to be too excited about. And I just think like they're probably going to be firing Ron Rivera at mid-season because I just think it's time for him to go. And if that happens, it's possible you still have great fantasy numbers on a bad team, but I just think that it seems like everybody is saying, oh, buy into this Washington player, and I just don't buy it.
Yeah, they have a lot of players that it's boom or bust. But I do like Dotson.
For sure. Okay, so my number 4, Marquise Brown. Hollywood Brown. This is a guy, I swear, every single year people want to make him out to be a superstar, or maybe he could be a superstar this upcoming season. I mean, we're yet to see him break out. He had one season that he was barely over 1,000 yards, and the other seasons he didn't even get over 800 yards. His other 3 seasons. So yeah, okay, D Hop is gone. I guess he probably is the most skilled receiver on this team. But if you want to talk about a team that's going to be so bad that every single player on the offense is probably not worth it at all, the Cardinals might be that team this season because they are going to be awful, especially let's see how long Kyler Murray takes to get back. And if you're 26 years old, we're waiting for him to break out. Okay, maybe we're gonna have to wait till his 27th-year-old season. I don't see if we have to keep waiting.
Yeah, I honestly don't have. He's a player who he often slips my mind when I hear about him. I have no interest in him. I'll admit I haven't looked much into him, but yeah, he's a player who I can skip. And if people are like really excited about him, I would definitely say don't be that excited.
I just think it's we kind of people have been excited about him a little bit every year, but now it's the D Hop is gone factor. So now he's kind of like his rating is kind of skyrocketing.
That's fair. People overreact. I put on the Twitter like don't overreact to all this news that's gonna come out in training camp, and you're gonna see so many like little like people just taking one little clip and be like this guy's screwed, or like this dude's gonna be the future, and it's so easy to overreact over like little things that happen.
And the day that D Hop
Little.
got released, like everybody's overreacting on Twitter one way, the other way. Like it's like people. I tweeted this out on a DVD on the DVD Twitter. Like everyone overreacts to something, and then everybody else overreacts to everybody else overreacting, and like it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like his value, Marquise Brown's value, like should have like D Hop leaving should have already been built into that. Like I think we all knew that that was likely the case this offseason. So
yeah, we knew that for a while, but I'll move on here to my number 3. Gonna go with the wide receiver here, and this is one that I was actually shocked to see his rating on Fantasy Pros, but from talk in the fantasy world that I've been hearing, very overrated. Mike Williams, and he's currently ranked as the wide receiver 40 on Fantasy Pros. Maybe that's just on like that. Again, that's just one source, so people can have them all over the place. But with that being said, I think it's very possible that he can turn into a flex option at best. And I think people talk about him like he's still a wide receiver 2 candidate. He's a big play wide receiver where he has like a couple games where he goes off, and then the rest of the games he's completely invisible. Was in and out of injuries last year, if I believe. I could be wrong about that, but they obviously just got Quentin Johnston. He had a dip in touchdowns. He's just so inconsistent. I had him on my redraft league last year, and he was just every week I had to start him, but it was just miserable to watch. His stats aren't horrible, so it's very misleading when you look at him. So I think that's another thing too to be wary of, because his stats aren't horrible, but like I said, he gets like over half of those stats within a couple games where he just goes off. But every other game, he'll have like one catch for 8 yards.
yeah, I agree. And obviously Quentin Johnson being there now, continues to kind of. I mean, they have a lot of good wide receivers there. Some of them can't stay healthy, but
and Eckler takes away so many passes. They just check down to him so much, and I've just not seen that deep play from Herbert Reese. Like I'm not a big Herbert guy. We've talked about that before, but yeah, I'm just not sold on Mike Williams. If people are looking at him as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, I think he who he reminds me of? Will Fuller.
Oh, that's bad. That's really bad. I don't know. He's not that bad.
But no, like the potential for that to happen. Will Fuller had like a game where he had like on Thanksgiving, I think he had like 185 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then had like 4 catches for the rest of his career. Like I could see Mike Williams just like with Quentin Johnson coming in. Maybe I'm not saying this is going to happen. But there is a world out there where Mike Williams just becomes irrelevant.
Yeah,
But I think
I'd rather.
realistically, I think he's a player who might end up on a lot of benches for a lot of weeks this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Personally, like it's just so frustrating when you have a player like that. I'd rather have you 13 consistent fantasy points every week than 18 one week, 5 the next. So, all right. For me, my third most overrated player currently right now is George Pickens. George Pickens. All right. So here's the thing. George Pickens only had 16% of the target shares last year. That's in comparison to Deontay Johnson, who had 27% of the target shares. And the 16% target shares for George Pickens was one of the lowest target shares for any player who ran a route in 91% of the offensive snaps. So basically, it's twofold for me. Number one, George Pickens, he's got the he's got the body, he's got the build, he's a big wide receiver, but I don't think he has the the nuance of the position down. Like the route running for me is not there. I think he's got some speed, but I don't think he has the route running ability. And then when you look at Pickett and how he performed last season, I think that was a part of it too. I don't think Pickett is really a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. And then when you look at how Deontay Johnson had no touchdowns last year, and he's likely to have a few this year, I just feel like Deontay Johnson is going to continue to be the wide receiver one there. While George Pickens is, he's a wide receiver too, and in my opinion, might be a better NFL receiver than a fantasy receiver.
This is where I'm gonna have to draw the line because I actually think George Pickens might be one of the most underrated players currently in fantasy because he's currently being ranked as wide receiver 32 from Fantasy Pros. And I think that to your point of the touchdowns for Deontay Johnson not being sustainable or not the opposite of
That he'll
what
get
you,
more,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that target share is absolutely wild. I think the quarterback play last year had a lot to do with that in Pittsburgh. And by the end of the year, the rapport between Pickens and Pickett was impressive. Like Pickens obviously sounds motivated this offseason, which I hate like basing anything off of that. So I'm literally just don't take that into account. But he had over 800 yards last year. He was good. And then just another like outside of Odell's famous catch, he made arguably one of the best catches of all time. And that's like something that you can't like that. I've
I
never
actually
seen a
forgot
player
about that low key until you
contort like
just said that.
that. Body control is the most absurd move of a receiver I've ever seen. And to physically mean to do that and watch the ball in the whole way is so incredible. And I feel like he was overshadowed a lot too because of a really strong draft class, especially at wide receiver. So you don't hear as much about it, but I mean, like I said, he had over 800 yards and he's going to get more targets. He said he should have been a Pro Bowl, but got snubbed, which I don't agree with that, but, he's obviously motivated. And I just see that. I think he's a player that he has the potential to explode. I'm not impressed with Deontay Johnson. And I think Pickens could very well become a wide receiver one within the next couple years.
All right, I'm watching this Pickens catch. Okay, yeah, my mind has changed. No, I'm just kidding.
But like,
It was an insane catch, but I think that's what he is. I think he's that big boom receiver who can, make those insane catches. But I see shades of Chase Claypool because he's got that he can fight for the ball like that and make those insane catches. But I just think that he's missing something, and he can get that this year, but I don't know if he will.
But if you can make catches, like you can't teach catching it like that. You can teach route running. You can improve on stuff like that. So I just see, he may not be fully polished right now, but he's a player who I definitely think to look out for.
I need to
But
see him take a step forward. I don't think he was that exciting out of college, but if he does take that step forward, he's got some talent for sure. Those catches that he had this year were pretty insane. Last year were
interesting.
pretty insane.
I just thought it was really interesting that I have him on like my most underrated and you have him most overrated. That's like two extremes. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But my number two, I don't think a lot of people will be surprised about this one. Kyle Pitts. He's the definition of overvalued right now.
which is why he's my number one, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I won't go into it too
Our
deep
our one
because
and two are flip flopped, I think, right?
oh yeah. So we can kind of just go back and forth with these. Yeah. Our ones
Yeah.
and twos are flip flopped. But Kyle Pitts, he's being ranked some as tight end number 1 for Dynasty or like tight end 3. Like he's just there's been absolutely nothing that I've seen that tells me that should be good. Yeah, he had a lot of yards his rookie year, but he literally has 1 touchdown or like or he has 3 total touchdowns for his whole career. And that's the number 1 stat for tight ends. We know how I feel about tight
That's
ends in
true.
general. And if you can't score touchdowns, and now you have Bijan Robinson on that team and Drake London, and I'm like, they still don't have their quarterback play. I wouldn't say Desmond Ritter, you should bet the house on. So there's just nothing there that tells me that Kyle Pitts should be drafted even over Travis Kelce at this point or valued over him. Um, Kyle Pitts, I think, is just in that same realm with any of the other tight ends that could go out, like Darren Waller or the like Pat Fryermuth or the Dalton Schultz. Like he's gonna have his weeks, but there's nothing that like I'm drafting him really, really high for.
Yeah, even his rookie year when like there was something to be excited about, it's exactly what you're saying. He had over 1,000 yards and still was nothing special in fantasy because he just didn't score those touchdowns. And he's another guy who like, yeah, you can tell by looking at him. He's got a great skill set. This dude is a big receiver, massive body, big receiver. But when you got Arthur Smith, who loves to run the ball, when you got Drake London, and you got a quarterback who you're not so sure about, and you got Bijan Robinson, which not only adds to the running game, but he also adds to the passing game too. Because I've seen him already in again, don't overreact to OTA films, but like I've seen him already line up as a wide receiver. Like he has that ability to line up as a wide receiver. So I don't know what to expect out of Kyle Pitts. Like he's got the talent. He's not going to be a great fantasy player at this point.
Yeah, I mean, in our league, he got traded for what was it? A first, more than a first?
2 firsts, a second, AJ Dillon. I'm not even, and this I as people that have been following people who have been following the podcast know that I've had Kyle Pitts on my team, and we actually have not really talked about this, but let me go look at the trade right now. I'll tell you. I think generally the whole entire Dynasty community would say this was an overpay.
Sorry, Jersey Shore. I think it was one of the most overvalued trades in our league.
Okay, I gave up Leonard Fournette and Kyle Pitts, which, by the way, this erased my bad Leonard Fournette trade. I got AJ Dillon, a 224 first and a second. I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no, man.
No, the thing is, this is the thing. Kyle Pitts is going to end up to be an absolute stud, and Nick's going to have Justin Fields and Kyle Pitts, and just we're both never going to be able to live that down.
But honestly, like it would be great if Kyle Pitts was on my team and if he ends up being a stud. But if he ends up being a stud, the value that I got back for him is perfectly fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you can't deny like turn that down. Even if you knew you're like, oh, Kyle Pitts is gonna be good, that's still amazing value.
I mean, would you trade that for Travis Kelce? That's probably about what you would trade for Travis Kelce. So,
yeah, I think that gets Travis Kelce done.
Yeah.
All right, since I revealed Pitts, you want to reveal your 2, my 1?
Yeah, he's my number 2, your number 1, Deebo Samuel. I'm looking now on Fantasy Pros. I was looking at his ADP now. Somewhere around 30, I think.
25. Wide receiver 25 is what I saw.
Okay. So here's the deal. He's the one who decided he didn't want to be a running back anymore. And I think that's where he lost a lot of his value right there because he doesn't get those goal line targets. And he's actually scored more touchdowns on the ground in his career than he has through the air. And so I think that's pretty much it for him. He's had one great season. And he's getting older and there's just so many weapons on that team, especially when you talk about the goal line and what they can do in the ground game as well.
Yeah, when you have McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell, like it's not like you can he can take that back and be like, oh no, actually I do want to start like getting running back touches again. But he's being drafted as the wide receiver 25, and he's a legitimate wide receiver 3. Like he's he's had over 1,000 yards total, rushing and receiving yards combined once in his 4 years in the league, which people talk about him like he's one of the top wide receivers in the league. And he hasn't had over 3 receiving touchdowns in any year besides one of those 4 years. So 1 out of 4 years, he had 3 receiving touchdowns or over 3 receiving.
Yeah, just
Quarterback. I still am not convinced on Brock Purdy. You're like, I feel like it's like a Nick Foles thing. And even if he is good, Ayuk is arguably a better receiver than Debo.
I think Brock Purdy, even if he is like a solid quarterback in the NFL, it's almost perfect for their system because they don't really love to like air out the ball too much. They have such like their offense just runs really fluidly and like it's a beautiful offense, honestly, but it doesn't consist of like just absolutely airing the ball out and scoring quickly. It's all about blocking and running the ball.
I saw somewhere too that his average yards ran before a catch was like 3.2. And if it was, I don't know if that's an exact number, but it was below 5 yards to how like his yards before he would get the ball. And that's just not sustainable. It's not something that you can count on as a wide receiver. You need those 15, 20-yard receptions. You can't just count on these little dink and dunk plays. But like you said, that's just their offense, which is a great NFL offense. But that's just, he's so incredibly overrated. And I think people are starting to realize that. And I also think that like us, like we're both on Kyle Pitts and Debo are like 2 very obvious players for it. But it's just the fact that he's wide receiver 22 or what as top 25 wide receiver in general, mind boggling.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so obvious just looking at his fantasy stats too. It's just like there's one very clear outlier. And that's never
extreme. It was like 1,800 yards, and outside of that, he didn't get over 1,000.
Yeah, he let's see, receiving yards that year. This is 2021, 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns through the air, 365 rushing yards. That's insane. And 8 touchdowns on the ground. So that was it right there. 8 touchdowns on the ground. If a wide receiver had 8 touchdown, like just, if he was just receiving, that would be great. I mean, that was just a monster year for him that you're just never going to get back.
Yeah, he has 0 running back appeal. Like that's just not gonna happen ever again. Like that Debo Samuel doesn't exist anymore. So erase that Debo Samuel from your memory.
Yeah, big time trade now. Big time trade now for sure. Okay, we have like a little bit of time. This is just a random little thing that we're gonna throw in here. Kickers in Dynasty. To be honest with you, I actually think it's very rare for kickers to be in a Dynasty league. Like I think that most people in the community will be like, why is this even a conversation? Because we still have kickers in Dynasty, and me and you are on the same page. Our league voted on it, and we're gonna keep the kickers. It's kind of like whatever for me, I guess, but like it's so unnecessary.
I think that's the thing. I get really heated when I talk about it, but then at the end of the day, I'm like, I really don't care. Like, it's whatever. It literally just has no value behind it. And it's rare, but it will happen to where you'll lose a game purely because of a kicker. And the reason I think we both believe that kickers are number one, they have no value. You've never had a kicker in a trade. But I will say I've had 5 kickers offered to me in the last week, and I just decline them immediately just because of that disrespect.
Yeah, I think that's now people are just doing it just to do it.
Yeah, but it's so random. If you look at the like kicker 1 through kicker 12 is separated by so few points.
And I'm gonna do it right now.
And number 2, the variable from week to week is so high that you could just randomly grab a starting kicker each week and you have just as likely chance of having the kicker number 1. They are so unpredictable. And we want to link it. We can't. People really want to get into it, but there are charts that show that kickers are by far the most unpredictable position. And it's just not worth it in Dynasty. Like, why are we wasting our time with it? Like,
yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like every player in Dynasty should have a value. And if you can't trade a kicker, or if you're never going to want to trade for a kicker, that literally means that there is no value. They're just a roster spot on your team. Last year, Daniel Carlson was the best fantasy kicker on our league with 158 points. Number 12 was Chase McLaughlin, 132 points. Do the math. That's just over 1.5 points per game difference from number 1 to number 12. So when you think about it, like there's absolutely no difference. Like it's not, but then there are those random games where a kicker will put up 20 points out of nowhere and then probably the next week get 0 points.
We can all remember a time when you went into Monday Night Football up 18, feeling great. And then out of nowhere, Jake Elliott goes for 22 and you lose like in the most heartbreaking way. Has like 3 for 50, 3 extra points and a 40-yarder and you lose somehow. Like it's just for a player, for a literal coin flip, not even a coin flip. It's like a roulette spin. Like
yeah. And I think
it's juvenile, to be honest. It's juvenile.
It is because because nobody's like, oh, this kicker, I'm gonna play this. We're not doing start and sit-ems for kickers here, okay? Like there's no.
They won't even include them. They never have. Matthew Berry, you could ask him about a kicker, be like, I don't know, don't draft one. Just whoever's projected the most each week, pick them.
100%. And like I think in redraft, it's okay to have a kicker, whatever. It's like a little bit more like unpredictable in general, because in Dynasty you're like building a team, like you know which teams going into the season are going to be good in your league and stuff like that. Like I just, and it's whatever, you're just going to have a little bit more fun with redraft, whatever. I think even in redraft it's not necessarily that important to have them, but yeah, I think in Dynasty when your whole, like, I'm not going to say your whole goal. My whole goal is looking at value and trying to gain value over time. That's now my new philosophy. Maybe that isn't everybody's, but regardless, like you still have to be evaluating players, looking towards the future, making trades that are going to benefit your team. And just kickers have no part in that. Like Dynasty is all about that strategy, that long-term strategy, literally creating a dynasty.
Yeah. And you can go into our league right now and go on the waiver wire and find a kicker that's projected more than probably your kicker that you have right now. It's just another reason why trade for one when you can pick up a player off the waiver wire whenever you want that's projected the same amount as the player that you have. Zero value. They are free players that are worth just as amount as the players that you're trading.
Yeah, I'm gonna let the whole league in on a secret here. I have Matt Gay. I have and our waivers for the offseason opened up this offseason. Matt Gay is projected to be the 12th best kicker this season. Our waivers for the offseason opened up today while we're recording this. I've spent my $100, my full fab money. 0 of it went on a kicker. Okay? 0 of it went on a kicker.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever spent money on a kicker too. That's the thing.
That's like, I'm going to wait and see if there's any kickers still there. And then I'm going to be like, oh, no, Matt Gay's fine. Fuck it.
Honestly, at that point, I would just be like, I'll go into the week without a kicker. Like, that's overreaction. But yeah, let us know what you think. Cause like I didn't realize that that's the like consensus. I've never been in a league that didn't have a kicker. So if that's
I've seen
normal,
conversation on Twitter where I see kickers, like someone will show someone their team on Twitter and then like they have a kicker and that's the first thing that someone comments on.
Like, why do you have kickers? Well, I think that's it's like I said, I feel like it's like when you first start playing fantasy, you never change the rules and settings. So you have the kicker in there. And then as you learn the fantasy world and realize the values of players, you realize that kickers are dumb.
Yeah. 100%. You know, final thoughts. Kickers are dumb. That's it.
That's the next T-shirt. Kickers are dumb.
True. Hey, if you're gonna buy a "Kickers are dumb" T-shirt, let us know. We'll make it happen. All right.
Let's go. DVD merch coming soon. Very soon. Maybe already. Who knows?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. What are you thinking here? Do you agree with our overrating of players? Do you agree with our kickers take? You know where to find us. It's going to all be somewhere on the bottom here. One of these directions. But yeah, check us out. And hey, we're just getting started. It's going to be a wild off season. We're going to get you through this off season. It's because it's tough. I'm just counting down the days. We're like 95 days away from kickoff, people. 95 days. And we'll keep you entertained. Until then, peace out.